Full service.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 23rd regular meeting of the Government Transition Advisory Committee. Today is Wednesday, September 11th, and we'll be here from 6 to 8 p.m. My name is Julia Meyer. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Engagement and Community Participation Manager for the transition. Our co-chairs, Amy and Juliet, will facilitate tonight's meeting. Next slide, please. This is going to take a moment to go over some meeting logistics. This is a hybrid meeting. The meeting is being live streamed on YouTube, and a recording of the meeting will be posted on the city's transition webpage under past meetings and events. For today's meeting, we have closed captioning, American Sign Language, and Spanish interpretation available. To access Spanish interpretation, please click on the globe icon at the bottom right of your screen and select Spanish. To access closed captioning, click on the CC button on the bottom right of your screen. For GTAC members, please take this moment to change your chat settings to everyone so that the public can view the chat. And please remember that the meeting chat is part of the public meeting record. For community members listening in, we have the Zoom Q&A feature available. You can submit questions or comments through the Q&A feature. We may not live answer all of your questions, but we do read them and they will become part of the public meeting record. With that, I will pass it to Juliet to review the agenda. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Julia. First, Amy and I just wanted to acknowledge that today is the anniversary of 9/11, and what a sad and somber. But on a lighter note, tonight's agenda includes committee business, public comment, recommendations for future city leaders, and looking forward to working on this 7 months. And at the end of the meeting, we will report upcoming meetings. Next slide, please. Fred is able to attend tonight, and Lori is a little late, and she's not going to be ready. We need to approve the August 7th meeting summary. So does anyone have any corrections from Lori and her motion? No, nothing. All right, how about a motion to approve that meeting summary?
This is
Jerry seconds. Okay. You want to turn it on for your speaker?
Can you hear better now?
How's it out there on Zoom?
Can you hear us? Can you hear us now? Can you hear us now? No. Well, we could turn off these mics so the person who's speaking should just unmute their computer. And try and see how that works. So these are off. Close Julia, if you're speaking, if you left your computer. It's not that. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna,
Does everyone have their mics on?
I think it's my setting.
That computer.
Yeah, can we mute that?
Go ahead.
Testing? Yeah, I think it's mine.
Or like muting the whole computer?
Okay.
Testing now? Oh, better, much better. Okay,
Oh, wait, let's make sure. that-
Problem is we won't be able to hear that.
I think you can.
Do you want to try again? Like test.
testing, testing. Can people out there hear me now?
They say
Okay.
much better.
Much
Okay.
better.
All right, so in our last interval, Zach had moved to approve the meeting summary from August 7th and Terry had seconded. Could I see a show of hands to approve the minutes, the summary? Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on. Next slide, please. At our last meeting, we previewed the next rotation of co-chairs. Based on our previous rotations, we would appoint 2 new co-chairs tonight to serve from October to December. Also, at our last meeting, Joe suggested rotating 1 co-chair at a time to reduce disruptions between rotations. We didn't vote on that idea, however. Both Amy and I are ready to rotate off. We've taken on extra meetings during our service, including testifying at budget hearings, meeting with every member of council, and participating in a council work session and preparing for that. We appreciate that Bill has volunteered to serve as a new co-chair from October to December, and Destiny has volunteered to return for our October and November meetings. We thank them for volunteering. Any questions about that plan before we entertain a motion to approve our next set of co-chairs as Bill and Destiny? Questions? Motion?
I so move.
This is Zach. I'll move to accept Bill and Destiny as our new co-chairs.
Second.
All right, all in favor, show a hand. Looks good. So Amy, would you like to reflect on your experience co-chairing?
If I think about my experience co-chairing, it feels like the last few months has really been this transition we talked about as a committee from when we have been working hard on this thing to the whole world cares about this thing that is transition and things are actually happening. And to watch those lights come on from the seat of leadership of this committee has been a real privilege, and it's been extremely meaningful to represent our work on that stage. And I'm so grateful to Bill and Destiny for continuing on that leadership and just grateful to this committee and staff for the work that we've done that I think we're going to look back on and feel really proud of ourselves for our contributions to this effort. And I think that the rest of the city is coming online to how historic this is. And that's exciting. Well, yeah.
Yeah, I concur with that. The experience was not quite what I expected because there was more housekeeping involved, kind of behind the scenes to keep the wheels greased. And I wish I had more time to interact with each of you and kind of work behind the scenes, but there was just kind of too much other stuff going on. And so maybe I'll be able to do that more now that I'm not going to be co-chairing, and I'm looking forward to being able to participate more instead of facilitating. I think the big thing that also happened during our rotation was we really got council's attention. We got some great feedback from them, and a lot of that is thanks to Julia really sticking with setting up meetings. It wasn't always easy to get their attention and their time, and then Amy and me working together to say something intelligible to them when we did meet with them. So I think that was kind of we really turned the corner with that and got on their radar. So next slide, please.
Can I just say a
Oh, sure.
few words? I'm just very grateful for both of you in taking on more than I think the role of just generally facilitating and being co-chairs has been in the past. And, I know that there is, we entered into an era in which now city council kind of cares a little bit more, but also, you were there and present for it. And wanted to recognize that extra level of commitment and the time and effort that it took to put those things together and make it happen and represent us well. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Maybe, Julia, yeah. May I say, I want to second Zach's comments. Really appreciate you doing a lot of work behind the scenes. Look forward to really getting feedback from you and prior chairs as to how the coordination goes. Thank you.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing you into the future of co-chairing. All right, any other comments about that before we go to the next slide? All right, I don't see any hands. So next slide, please. Our final order of business is to review our working agreements. In discussions, challenge ideas rather than individuals and offer constructive suggestions. Approach different opinions with curiosity and seek to understand. Keep the needs and concerns of the local community and the larger region at the forefront of the work. Arrive on time and prepared to the best of your ability. Let the group know if you cannot attend a meeting. And the co-chairs will aim to incorporate tools for breathers. Keep multitasking to a minimum and keep focus on the objectives of the meetings. Use co-chairs to note additional topics for discussion by submitting topics in writing via email. Next slide, please. Honor the decisions of the group. Contribute to the overall success of the group by finding ways to participate that best meet your needs. Step up and step back. Collectively work to ensure that every member who wants to be heard is heard. Embrace conflict and work with your fellow committee members and staff to find ways to give each other feedback. And the co-chairs will aim to incorporate various feedback tools and use I statements. And I will pass the torch now to Julia to introduce public comment.
Switch over to her microphone.
Oh, yeah.
Are we all in this one?
I think folks can hear me.
Okay.
Juanita, I see you. Can you hear me?
Can anybody online indicate that they can hear Julia?
Very quiet.
Can't hear people because you turned the volume up.
Yeah, we're gonna have to, when they raise their Zoom hands. I'm just wondering if they can hear me. I will unmute myself. Give me mute themselves. Sorry, folks. Okay, can folks online hear me? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry for the technology problems. So this is the time for public comment. Community members were asked to sign up ahead of time. I just checked and nobody has. But like always, I just want to pause for a moment and see, in this case, if there's anyone in the virtual audience who wants to give public comment. If you do, you can raise your virtual hand and I can promote you into the room, and I'll just give you some seconds to ponder. Okay, thank you. But as a reminder, folks can give public comment at any time. You can call 311. You can email us at transition@portland.
That's fine.
Calling 31. Sorry.
I apologize for, I'm fairly new on this.
We've all done this.
It has to be said. The animal is still looking at them.
How is it now? We are going to catch up because we don't have public comment. So we are still on track. I apologize. So I'm just going to repeat again how folks can submit public comment outside of a public meeting. So folks can call 311. You can email us at transition@portlandoregon.gov, or you can fill out the online public comment form on the Transition website. With that, we'll go to the next slide and I will turn it over to Amy. Thank you.
Can folks online hear? Yeah. Yeah, okay. I'll keep going then. I don't see affirmation, but that's okay. Yeah, okay. So as usual, we have 10 minutes held for members to share any insights from a recent community engagement. Just like Juliet mentioned, in mid-August, Juliet and I provided communications at a council meeting where we talked about our recommendations and asked council leaders to step up. We also had a meet and greet with the interim city administrator, and yesterday we participated. Well, thank you, Terry and Juliet. Juliet participated in a council work session on the transition, which my own editorializing is because of us going to council. I do believe that we have been putting it on the radar of the broader council that the transition is happening and it's worth paying attention to. I'll ask Juliet to briefly share any reflections on those engagements before we get from other members, and then we'll have about 10 minutes.
So, the interim assistant city administrator, that was Annie Zonberg, that's what we're talking about, right? Yeah, actually, most of our meetings with council and with her seemed like everything we were saying that they were pretty much in agreement with. I didn't hear all of our conversation with her because I was having Wi-Fi problems. But one comment I did make to her was kind of from my neighborhood bias is, what about some of these long-standing issues? What's going to happen to those in the transition? So I used the example of a park
Northwest Portland that was master planned and committed to by the city a long time ago. And every time there's new staff assigned to that land use project, whatever it is, the Slabtown master plan, we kind of have to re-inform them and nag them, and it's taken a lot of monitoring just to stay on top of it. And I believe it's at the end of this year that the agreement with the city is going to run out, and we really have made very little progress. So that was my example of what is going to happen. Who's tracking these issues that people often find so frustrating, because it's been years and years of dogging City Hall, even about some things that they have clearly committed to. And so that was kind of my point. But I missed part of it. So maybe Amy can.
Yeah, we were mostly just saying to her that we were hoping to be wind at her back, that the recommendations and the work that we've done as a committee is really meant to inform their efforts and start them running as far as community engagement. And she was very excited to hear that. It was a very, the best kind of meeting we could have hoped for, just saying this is all of the work and these are the things that we as a committee are experts in, and we'd love to help you do whatever it is that you need to do with that information. And yeah. Anybody else want to share community engagement updates? We have a few more minutes for just recent engagement or sharing about stuff. If there's any Zoom hands. Okay, I'm going to give it a few more seconds and then we can move forward.
Do we need to say any more about the council work session yesterday? Well, you weren't there, Terry was there, Shauna was there. We ended up with not very much time, but they were very receptive to what we were saying about our recommendations now. And yeah, I feel like when we show up, they listen. So, and they'd already been sitting there for a while by that point. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought it was a great work session. Thank you so much for being there. Thank you. I do think that when you're in the unmute, I am unmuted. Sorry. Okay. I do agree that being in the room with them increases the dynamic, and also the opportunity to kind of have a more public conversation. I think that they were very there was a lot, you know, and so whether or not we have another opportunity to spend more time with them in that kind of forum, you know, we'll see. We could talk about the transition every day and still not cover all of the elements of it. It's a huge step. You know,
A related question we can discuss later, but you commented that meeting or the work session had a lot of subjects. You only had a short period of time. So I'm wondering, this is more of a general question, we could think about ways that city or different committees could increase, shall we say, the efficiency of the meetings or the people who attend. So one doesn't say spend 3 hours for a 15-minute opportunity. I'm not sure exactly how that, but maybe I could raise that observation and consider that in terms of our recommendations and observations and how meetings can function.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. So, next slide. I'm sorry, one last thing on the community engagement updates. I did my silliest presentation yet, which was to a local acupuncture studio, and the acupuncturist had asked me. And so it was several acupuncture and natural health providers, and they had really wonderful questions, and they genuinely had not really heard much about the transition. So that was just like a feel good piece of engagement that I wanted to share. Just like, it wasn't that many people, but it was just really special to get out and actually reach communities we haven't reached. Okay. So the next slide, the timeline for recommendations. So the recommendations we will consider today have been in development since last fall. The groups gathered and evaluated data from November 2023 to February 2024. We held an early community engagement period to inform the draft recommendations in March and April. We released the draft recommendations for internal and external output in May. And we held an external and external engagement period on draft recommendations from June to August. Then groups reconvened in July and August to revise the recommendations based on the input. It's a substantial amount of work, and we should be very proud. Next, we'll hear a summary of the themes of this summer's engagements from Destiny, with a brief opportunity to share takeaways from the engagement period, and then Terry will present the group's revisions. Next slide, and I'll turn it over to you, Destiny.
Thank you, Amy. I'm gonna make sure that everyone can hear me all right. Thumbs up. Awesome. I don't know if people in the room can hear me, but people on Zoom can hear me. Okay, I see a head nod from Julia. Thank you. So I wanted to give an overview of who we connected over the past 10-week engagement period. So we heard back from 403 survey participants. We had 2 listening sessions with over 70 attendees. We had conversations with 5 community-based organizations representing communities that have been historically left out of City Hall decision-making, and there was 16 internal city briefings. Next slide, please. Okay, and on here you can see the distribution of survey respondents by each district. District 1, as you can see, is East Portland, and it had the fewest respondents at 16%. District 2, North and Northeast, represented the largest margin of respondents at 33%. Racial demographics here are also noteworthy. Survey respondents were reportedly 76% white, 10% more than the general Portland population. The racial makeup of the next largest category was prefer not to say and is unfortunately unclear, but it is definitive that 13% of survey respondents were people of color that self-identified. So just holding a second longer to view these slides. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. Now we're going to talk about some of the general analysis on our recommendations. The most confidence was found in the recommendation for an online hub. Most respondents expressed a desire to easily access council agendas, meeting materials, and so on. The second most popular recommendation was for a public input tool. There was a lot of discourse and conversations about how public facing this input should be. Respondents felt that also felt least favorable about the tracking system. Respondents sought to know who will be responding to these requests and how they will be triaged. For an example, who pulls the tickets and how do we know it's closed? How does it move forward? So again, a lot of discussions and questions surrounding that recommendation. Next slide, please. Thank you. Regular communication was the most favorable recommendation for accessing city councilors. Respondents did express interest in timely district-wide newsletters. The community event attendance was the second most popular recommendation. These events would be seen as the proper venue for hearing community needs that might not be currently on the council's radar. Office hours and town halls would need to be accessible to working people and not dominated by special interest, as some comments that we heard. Respondents suggested holding these meetings where folks already gather, such as the public library, rather than in district offices, where some comments made. In district offices received the least amount of support. The primary concern was regarding cost and ultimately should be decided on a district by district basis based on needs. And then funds for in-district engagement reflected the highest rate of uncertainty and more information on them is needed. It was discussed how some districts may be in greater need of engagement funds than others. So again, conversations based on needs. Next slide, please. The recommendation for committees to be the primary input tool received mixed feedbacks. Respondents wanted to know how public facing these committees would be and how counselors on different committees would communicate with each other on matters as well. There was robust support for soliciting input outside of council, which we observed. Social media and surveys were among the recommended mediums for such solicitation from council. The recommendation for public comment on non-agenda items during council meetings received the lowest levels of support. There were concerns regarding time, as well as the risk of this space being usurped by special interests or common people who show up often. And then considering diverse perspectives received some support. Respondents expressed that council should aim to connect with the same proportion of demographics as those in their districts, especially populations who do not typically engage with our local politics and government. Let's see, next slide, please. Thank you. Earlier engagement in the budget process and releasing a trial budget were popular. There was particular interest in initiating budget education and participatory budgeting. Also, partnering with community-based organizations was also supported, but there were questions on how engagement with historically marginalized communities could be realistically achieved. Followed by in-district budget town halls also receiving some support. These venues may be appropriate for explaining how much of the budget is locked in, and also a consistent process would be needed for reporting feedback. And then the recommendation for having an executive level office oversee community engagement in the budget process was less popular. Participants voiced that the city administrator must commit to engagement and not just efficient administration of public agencies. And then finally, dissolving bureau budget committees received the highest rate of uncertainty. Respondents sought clarity on the role and authority of an advisory body, which we have mentioned it before. Next slide, please. Thank you. Then feedback on setting up city council committees was largely grouped into topics around committee structure and focus, operating rules and procedures, and community engagement. So for some of the general analysis, committee structure and focus, define legislative responsibility versus the administrative role for each committee topic, have committee topics align with service areas or strategic plans, action items, determine what community involvement will look like, the rules and procedures, determine how many members committees need, appoint chairs based on experience, skills, and interest, discuss how much power chairs have to prioritize or block certain agenda items, and then the community engagement piece, have advisory bodies correspond with committees to facilitate public input and provide additional channels for public comment. Have those in new officer roles be liaisons to committees for the disciplines. Next slide, please. Thank you. And I will pass it back to Amy.
I'm gonna unmute myself. So we have a little time for members to share key takeaways from the engagement report, and what you think we should keep in mind as we discuss revisions based on the engagement. We have about 5 to 10 minutes for this discussion. Destiny, go ahead.
Thanks, Amy. I think a lot of the discussion pieces that were highlighted in the report and in these slides just really capture that people want to know how council sees themselves setting up this new government, and kind of like the commitment they'll have to community engagement and not being redundant, not being costly to try these things out. So I think it's, really important that we have these ongoing conversations because we have data to show that there is interest, but I think it's the concern of how do you put interest into practice in a well way. And I think that takes collaboration and ongoing effort, which is what the community, in my opinion, highlighted.
Anybody else? Oh yeah, Jane, go ahead.
Thanks, Amy, and thanks, Destiny, for pulling all the information together. I think it's wonderful information, and I think it's actually a higher caliber of thoughtfulness than I would have imagined, because a lot of people don't know, have no experience of things in the past, but are being very thoughtful in projecting on how it can be better and how it might work. So that is my takeaway is, how smart is the general public? And I was pleased to see a lot of the recommendations, put into the document that we're going to review later, that you've already moved that in. So if I were an incoming council person or mayor or city administrator, I would be all over this. I think there's some thoughtful indicators. So again, as the major document said, these are recommendations and people are going to be busy. But if we have a chance, which we will have, to talk with incoming folks, we want to say, listen, your community is already thinking about this. So use them, ask them. So nice work, you guys. Thank you.
So I just have 2 things. I'm not sure if this is even what we're looking for, but I just noticed on slide 13 in those donut pictures that we still are hearing the least from District 1. And that's our weak point. And I don't have a sense of how much we've progressed with that in terms of traditionally underrepresented groups. If we should be trying harder. I don't know. I don't think in this group we have researched what peer cities have done to reach those groups. If we did, I don't remember that part. So I'm just curious about what's going to be done with that information. It seems really important, especially as we move to the new council and deal with the whole district office question. My other observation is about sorry, I'm sort of hopping around. When Destiny said that as far as the tracking system, that people didn't have a lot of confidence in that because they weren't sure who was, respondents sought to know who will be responding to these requests and how they will be triaged. So I've been pretty vocal about that. I thought we needed a tracking system and that there needed to be a ticketing system, because I've had this experience of calling the city about a problem and I've gotten 4 different answers from 4 different people. And so I think the answer to this is it shouldn't matter who's responding, because you should have a ticket number and some kind of protocol that makes it at least more seamless than it is now and more standardized. So I hope that over time that anxiety will go away and people won't be getting different answers depending on who answers the phone. So, thank you.
Thanks. We have a couple more minutes. Okay. Well, that's all right then. Seeing none, I'm going to turn it over now to Terry to share the group's agreed to revisions in our recommendations. Next slide.
Okay, so hopefully everybody can hear me. We in the districts and council operations committee went through the draft pretty carefully and did some serious consideration of a lot of material and came up with a number of edits and changes and rewrites, and they passed our subcommittee unanimously. But I will try and summarize them here. I don't have my speaker notes, so I'm just winging it, and hopefully I will cover all the material. Members of the subcommittee, if I'm forgetting something, feel free to pipe up and help me out. And Juanita, I see your hand, and we'll come back to it because I know you have some suggestions and edits. So next slide. Okay, so in general, these were the general revisions. We added an opening section, an introduction, rather than launching into the recommendations themselves. I think it's an improvement, and I know Juanita has some comments on that, so I'll come back to that. We removed like should language throughout at times, became less prescriptive. This was largely responsive to what Lori had suggested earlier, that we're not the boss of anybody, and we shouldn't sound like the boss of anybody. Though, you know, these are GTAC recommendations, and we do recommend them. So some of it was just language, and some of it was actually not being too precise, realizing that the precision is going to have to come from council at some point. You know, we tried to keep it consistent in our style and language, and then we added a closing as well. Next slide. These are the specific revisions that might have changed that you should note. We combined constituent relations, public input to council, and district engagement into a single recommendation area, calling that area as engaging with city government. It's just sort of a categorization revision that we made. We added a recommendation that says ensure that community engagement is embedded in our new government's culture, because that covers a lot of GTAC's previous engagement recommendations. We added language about the need for a more profound investment in District 1 or East Portland, depending on how you wanted to phrase that. In the setting up the council section, well, we added the section. We incorporated previous recommendations on increased staffing and the team building opportunities in onboarding. We added a prioritization of a citywide strategic plan that came up in multiple areas of recommendations. Next slide. In setting up council committees, we again became less prescriptive, tried not to do the work that the new council is going to have to do anyway, but focused rather on the rationale for our recommendations of committees, specifically that we would balance the powers and workloads of individual council members and across districts, making sure that each district, all the districts were well represented in each committee as equally and equitably as possible. And then in the budget section, participating in the budget, we added specific support for the budget and finance staffing process transition consultants report that had a lot of recommendations that looked a lot like ours at times for engagement. I think reading their report and our report together went really well. So those were the revisions to the document that you had already seen. And I think that's it. So at this point, I think we open it up for discussion, and you guys are running discussion. Juanita has discussion. I know this for sure. So I will mute myself. You guys can.
Thank you, Terry. So we actually have an entire half hour to talk about this before we need to vote on the recommendations. So first, we will take some clarifying questions on the revisions, and then let's take a minute to look at Juanita's changes, and then we will ask for new revisions from you all. So let's just see a show of hands of people who have questions or comments, just so I can sort of scope it.
Sorry, proposed revisions or questions?
Clarifying questions and comments. Okay, well, it looks like we have plenty of time, so.
I just have a comment. I was going through it and page numbers are really weird. We're gonna fix that, right? Oh, just at the bottom of each page, it says 1 of 27, blah, 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 and you get to 19, and then it stops, and it says page 1 again. So the page numbers are just a little weird in the document. So just to point that out, to like you look at it and make them consistent, because I think when we put in the engagement report, those pages, numbers that get changed. So just that.
Is your microphone on, Jose? Destiny says she's having a little trouble.
Just repeat it.
It is not.
What's that?
Just repeat it real quick.
Destiny, Jose was just commenting that the page numbers are a little hard to use. So let's go to Bill.
Yeah, Terry, this committee, tremendous amount of work to write a comprehensive, extensive report. Struck me when I was looking at subsequent slide, has there been any interaction with the city auditor's office? And I'm not well versed in what the city auditor's office does, but if they audit things, this could be a useful working document for the auditor's office. So I don't have a particular revision. I'll just make that comment. Potential audience.
Thank you, Bill. Juanita, would you like to talk about the changes that you submitted today?
Thank you, Julia. Yes. I sent it in writing to Julia and to the rest of the committee. I hope it was earlier this afternoon, so I'm not so sure if all of you had the time to take a look at it. It is only one page piece. And the main change that I'm recommending is in the introduction on page 4 under the context setting. And presently, I don't know if everybody has the document handy, so you can go through that, the one that Julia sent us originally to work on the changes. But you have in the context setting of page number 4, there is the first paragraph about the GTAC acknowledged that its role is in offering, let me see, role in offering these recommendations is entirely advisory. The new government, the new elected council, the new mayor, the new city administrator, and the administration retains the prerogative as to if and how the city implements these recommendations. My main concern with that introductory paragraph is that we did work with lots of community members, asking them for their input and their feedback. We all have the understanding, and I think that Lori has also stated that before, and I agree with her, that yes, we are only a advisory board. But I think that the city knows that, the new government will know that, and we know that. But when we had engaged, and I use in the one page that I sent out, the statement that the report that we have in the report on page number 16, we say that GTAC is honored and thanks the hundreds of Portland residents who came to GTAC meeting, a community presentation, a listening session, or provided impressive and useful input in any number of ways in these past few months. That's very powerful. And that's when we went into the community, they trust us. They took the time to come and talk to us and share with us their concerns and their ideas and how to implement the transition in an effective way and to resolve the issues that they're facing in the present time. So I'm concerned with the statement because this is going to be a document that is going to be presented to the community also. And when we start the report, we're saying, well, you can take it and throw it in the trash if you want to. We understand that. I feel like we are diminishing the importance of the document. We already know that, and the city knows that. I don't know why do we need to put it in this document. When I read the city paid for the audit of the budget process and the staffing for the city. Within that report, which was a very comprehensive report, in any given point, they said, we understand that you can just ignore this and put it in the trash if you want to, or you can implement it whenever you want to. They just did the report. And it's exactly what we're doing too. We given a task, we worked really hard, we did the research, we involved the community, we're still very involved with the process. So we know that. And so I just feel like people who were there and that trust us and we encourage them to get involved, and they read this and they're going to say, oh, what a waste of time. If I have known that this is just a game or just a process that we don't know if it's going to be implemented or not, they wouldn't have participated as actively as some of the community did. So that's my concern. That's what I'm promoting or recommending, that takes out. It's not necessary. That's my personal opinion. Now, my recommendation is that we leave it, and again, I put it in writing in the page that I sent to Julia and everybody else, that the GTAC understands and acknowledge that many of the recommendations can be complex, difficult to implement, resource limited, or controversial. And the GTAC understands the recommendations are among the many urgent priorities that will be competing for the new government's time and attention. And then the change that I'm proposing reads, despite these results, let me see what I find it here. Despite these results, despite the results, these recommendations address foundational organizational and programmatic areas which will facilitate the effective and efficient implementation of the charter reform. And then I left the rest of that paragraph. We offer these informed and thoughtful recommendations in the spirit of leveraging the unique opportunity afforded by this charter reform that was moved forward by community and Portland voters. So those are the changes that I'm proposing to the front page. And then also just a little bit of a clarification on page 10 and recommendation number 2, second bullet, where it talks about a serious no, it says, share counselors' values, aspirations, philosophies, and expectations. And this is talking about the team building process. Just to make it more clear that specific piece, just to add in the beginning of that paragraph, as early as possible, provide the new counsel the opportunity to, and then this rest stays the same. I'm open for questions or comments or, I hope that makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you, Juanita, for explaining that. So I see that some of you are putting just copy edits in the chat, and that's good. So keep doing that, whatever else occurs to you. And we're just going to include in our discussion suggested substantive revisions like Juanita just made. So do we have any other substantive revisions to discuss? So
Do you want to discuss Juanita's or do you want to take all the?
let's take all of them together and then we'll discuss. So let's go to Jose.
This is, I don't know how substantive this is, but when I was looking at it, and even though Julie made a comment to not get bogged down by the size of the document, I keep going back to the fact that the document is so long. It might be better for us to take out the recommendations and make it a short little document and then say appendices attached and make that a giant document. I'm just afraid the new city counselors doing a million things going to open a giant 100-page document and be like, and put it aside for later. While if they open a little short one that hasn't attached extra stuff, it might be easier to digest.
Thank you, Jose. Terry, did you want to, okay, we'll hear from Destiny.
I just kind of want to comment off of Jose's suggestion real quick. I really like how our document reads now, and I know I'm one of those people that doesn't want to be bogged down by onboarding and reading a bunch of things, but I think if we can push this forward and organize our way in a way that we can prioritize this as an onboarding material, I think that would be the best thing possible, and to keep getting in front of candidates and counselors at the start, asking them specifically, have you read it? And if not, let's read it together, and talk about the work and the community voice there. So I hear what you're saying, Jose. I'm very much that type of person as well, but I think this is, in my point of view, an organizing moment.
Thank you, Destiny. Terry, did you have something or was it just a little edit?
No, I wanted to respond to Juanita, so I'm not forgetting Juanita. But I also want to just clarify exactly what we were just talking about with the length of the document. Are you talking about the attaching the appendices or not? Or is this distilling it down to a page or page or two? Yeah.
I think everything that's included should be included. It's just separate our main recommendations into one short document and then have everything else labeled appendices, and even put the full table of content and everything and the references, but just put our main recommendations short, to the point, and like right in front of their face, and then they can refer to everything else at their own.
So you mean an executive summary?
No.
Mute myself. Since I put the document together, there are our recommendations in bullet form are about 12 pages long. The document, when you open it, is like 140, 50, I don't remember, page PDF because there are 100+ pages of attachments. Sorry, I'm gonna repeat myself. Our recommendations are about a dozen pages only, primarily in bullet form. But when you open the recommendations document itself, the PDF is like 150 pages because we have 140+ pages of appendices. And appendices are really broken into two sets. Set one is the 3 engagement reports that directly inform the production of your recommendations. And the second set of appendices are your existing recommendations to current city leaders, onboarding, community engagement, et cetera. So I think what we're discussing, and I could use some direction, is just whether it would be more accessible for folks who are going to read it in the future to open a document that is only 12 pages. And at the end, we say, here are the electronic links to these 8 appendices so that the entire document becomes 13 pages instead of 150. Thank you.
All right, we have a few hands up, so let's each just take a couple minutes and we'll start with Jane.
Thank you all. Julia, thank you for that explanation, because when I printed off the document, I only printed page 4 through page 16. And it was an easy read. You know, I took it to the armchair and it was an easy read, because congrats to the people who wrote it and edited it. It is an easy read, and it could be a very difficult read. And Juanita, I think that your comments are magnificent, but I'm also a great believer in the disarming and charming introduction. And this is a disarming and charming introduction. It's kind of like, hey, you guys, we've done oodles of work. We've done lots of work. We've looked all over the countryside. We've talked to loads of community members. Maybe we bring the number of community members we've heard from into that first paragraph in order to hit home with that. But I think that in kind of like saying that we're not shrill, we're not telling you what to do, we know that you're busy people, we encourage people to read on. So I would like to advocate for the charming and disarming introduction. I do think the whole document is really great, and I can't believe how different it reads from the original one. And I do like the less prescriptive, and I do like the whole idea of balance and power. But my number one thing that I love in this is the strategic planning. I love that. And if I could bring that to number 1 instead of number 3, I would be a happy girl. But other than that, it's fabulous. So all of you people that did all of that work, A++ and extra recess, thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Amy now for a couple minutes.
I probably can just write this in the chat, but I just feel strongly that I agree about separating the documents so that the appendix is different from just like this is the core thing, because I feel the same way about just opening a 100-page document. And then also feel strongly that we should change the cover photos to photos of only our committee. I think these like add some color to what the report is, but really the cover should be just our committee probably. That's my suggestions.
Thank you, Amy. Terry, 2 minutes, please.
I was just going to type in the chat, like, I'm not sure that we're photogenic enough for a cover page, but yeah, I think we should be. Okay, I did want to respond to, now that it's been clarified, I agree with Jose, and I think I agree with everybody. Indices should not be pages on our document. I wanted to get back to Juanita's stuff, because I feel the same way that Juanita does about this. But I heard sort of loud and clear at our last meeting that we needed to recognize the council's role. and recognize that we're not the boss. And that was the reason that we dialed back some of the language. So I think generally, I think we've got the right tone in our introduction now, but I do like some of Juanita's language, and I wouldn't mind redoing it a little bit if offline, but I think we want to adopt it tonight. So I'm torn a little bit, but I wanted to explain why it says that the council has that prerogative is because those words were spoken at our last meeting, that we need to recognize that in it somewhere. So I wrote the introduction to say that.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Terry. So Juanita and Lori, if you could quickly make a comment, and because we just have a few more minutes to figure out our motion. We'll start with Juanita.
Okay. Mine would be very fast. I just want to say that I agree with the concerns that I'm hearing. And because, we have talked about this before. However, when we talk about the role of the committee, just before the context setting and the part called the introduction, it says that the GTAC's task is to ensure effective and efficient implementation of charter reforms, engage the public, and provide strategic advice to the city that is research informed. We are united in involving Portlanders in the successful transition of our government. So our role is right there. It is specified. It's the task that we were given. We are an advisory board. The name says DOL. That's all. My main concern is with the reaction of the public, losing the trust that they think that they did all of this and we're working and we're making these recommendations, but in the same time we're saying, so that's my only comment. I think the role of the committee is very well established. And I'm just concerned with the impact that will have in the public. It's not about me or what I believe or what I feel or whatever. No, it's about the involvement of the community. How will they feel about it? That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Juanita. Lori, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to thank Terry and the group in the rewrite on the context. I know that I was the one that was vocal about us, that we weren't the boss. And so I appreciate the way it was rewritten, but I really like Juanita's recommendations. I think that it's a good way to acknowledge the work that's been done. I was thinking there's perhaps a way, and I like Terry's suggestion of perhaps just taking it offline, but there's a way to maybe flip that paragraph and put the first two sentences not first, and starting the way that Juanita is suggesting starting it, so that it's not the first thing that it hits everybody. But anyway, thank you for the work that you did to put this context setting together. I think it's excellent.
Thank you.
All right, Destiny, one more comment.
Thank you. As part of hearing, as a facilitator, hearing the feedback of being less prescriptive, it is their prerogative. Electeds don't like being told what to do, even though they're public servants. I feel Juanita's sentiment 100%. And I feel like, as Lori mentioned, we could probably format it to have both because it is their prerogative. But at the same time, like Jane said, we've heard from hundreds of Portlanders, and Juanita pointed out at the very end, we didn't acknowledge that early on enough to make it powerful enough. So I think there's a way to say it is your prerogative, but we were tasked to do this, and the public has from these things. And so we really hope you read these recommendations as foundational to this new government and the opportunities that lie in there. So I think we're really in agreement here, and I think you can have both, is just my final comment.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, Julia.
Well, actually, I have a proposed revision on behalf of Joe, who's not here, but I see Terry's hand. So if it's about this, you go, because mine's totally different. He tells me to go. So I'll do my best here. I imagine this might live in the recommendation around increased staffing for council, though Joe didn't specifically say that. He says that he's very concerned that no senior staff member is accountable directly to the council. If issues arise, for example, policy, personal, interpersonal, there is no one a counselor can confide in who is not ultimately answerable to the mayor. This could be awkward and problematic. Thanks.
So.
This was something that was brought up throughout the development of the council operations conversation. And there was that expectation that the council operations manager, who ultimately is hired and managed by the council president, is that person that invited in by a counselor. Let's just say, come to my attention that a member of my staff is behaving in a way that I don't appreciate and I want to discipline them. They can get the information that they need through the council operations manager. Or it's come to my attention that XYZ is happening on the council. How do I increase, collaboration across the council? The council operations manager is somebody, the person that we've hired is a experienced parliamentarian and has a lot of experience within that space and also defining that role. So I think we will know more about what we need. And I very much share the concern that Joe is raising. And that's why we provided that staff member and that staff infrastructure to assist with that. It's new to Portland. It's not a new model, and I'm sure we can improve on it over time.
Well, the microphone is still on. I share Joe's concern a lot. I do think, just to clarify for Joe and for everybody, that even though the org chart that we've seen has dotted lines from the council operations into the city administrator's office, those aren't supervisory. That's where the paychecks are coming. Okay.
Part, since it was adopted in November, to specifically address this problem, that the council operations manager will be hired in the future by the council president.
Right. So with that clarification, I think my impression, though, is that it gets us halfway there. At the work session just yesterday, there was discussion about that very, very issue where the council operations manager said that there are going to be times where she has to be like Switzerland, be neutral and be the confidant to the whole council somehow. And I have concerns about that. And I think our recommendations talk about staffing of the presiding officer, which I think is an important thing. It still is up in the air on how that happens, so that there's more room for confidential communications. So anyway, I think this is a long way of saying, explaining that I think we have that in our recommendations, where we're talking about council staffing. And that's my intent in some of those recommendations there. So I don't know that needs an additional change from Joe. It's a long way. I'll stop there, and I'm coming back to Juanita's in a minute.
So we are perfectly on time to make a motion. Are you ready to make a motion, Terry?
Well, can I make a comment?
Are you just gonna do them all at once? So,
Well, I will, okay, that's fine. Yep.
Yes, I'm going to make a motion all at once. I am going to try to accommodate Juanita with a gentle rewrite of our introduction pursuant to the conversation we had. So I move our recommendations as they stand, with some edits to the introduction pursuant to our conversation. That's my motion.
This is Jane, I'd second.
Discussion of the motion. And did you all hear the motion or do we need to restate it? Let's take a comment from Zach.
Yeah, I just want to clarify the motion. Sorry, but there are specific changes that Juanita suggested that are within our recommendations that are different from the rewrite in context. And so I don't know if we're including that in your comprehensive motion.
Sure, I will include in my motion Juanita's edits to the one recommendation.
Juanita, would you like to make a quick comment?
I will say, yeah, no, I appreciate the change in the motion. I appreciate that because I was going to make the same comment that the way the motion was stated is very vague and it isn't clearly addressing the specific changes that I recommended. So thank you so much, Terry.
Any other comments on the motion? Okay, all in favor? Oh, roll call. Sorry.
well, we'll do the motion and then we'll vote on the record. Wait, sorry, can you repeat your motion?
Yeah, we have a motion.
Just was it to move the whole recommendations as revised in the following ways?
It was.
Perfect.
And including
Sorry, I was getting confused too.
Can you repeat the motion, Terry, just to make sure?
Okay, Julia will call the roll and add your votes on the screen.
Okay, I'm gonna. Oh.
Can somebody read the motion, please?
Sorry, folks, my Zoom was minimized. Juanita, is that an old hand?
No, I'm asking that before we do the roll call, can Julia read the motion, please?
I didn't give the motion, but I believe the motion is to approve the recommendations as revised by two things. One, including your changes to the council team building recommendation on page 10, and substantively revising the context portion of the document that aligns with the conversation that we had today.
What is substantially? I'm sorry, that's not very clear. I mean, I just want to know. I just want to understand what we're voting on. That's all. I want to make sure that's clear. Because what I hear Terry saying is that he made the motion to approve the revisions is presented, including the recommendations that I submitted. The second time when he made the motion, he corrected his motion after somebody asked him a question about it. Oh, Zach asked.
I might let them speak for themselves. I think my understanding was, I thought Zach was asking about your second substantive recommendation around the team building, because we hadn't discussed it yet, but that generally the consensus of the group seems to be that folks agree with your conceptual revisions to the context setting, but that folks want to maybe edit your specific words before tomorrow, when we hope to finalize this document. Or not before tomorrow. But that conceptually folks are aligned with what you are supporting.
So, okay, so that means deleting the specific language that says that the city council will or will not, whatever they decide, if they wanna listen to recommendations or not. So that I just wanna make sure that that is included, because that is really critical.
I think we can work through that is my answer.
Can I work with you?
I think
I'm part of the
it's,
committee. Can I work on it with you guys?
Juanita, we're gonna have, Juanita, the way the room is working right now, we're gonna have to take turns here. So let me try and finish. I think we can accommodate the language that you sent in addition to something that says that we understand the role of the council is the deciding, or they're the deciders. So I want to accommodate the language that you added and add it to what sort of exists in an edit that makes sense that we can work through tomorrow. That's the extended version of the motion. That makes sense. Now I'm going to mute and
Thank you for the clarification, Terry.
Okay. Are we ready to do a roll call vote? Terry, can you put your hand down for me? If you're not ready, can you put your Zoom hand up? Okay, thank you. Just wanted to double check. So I'm just gonna read the names in the order they appear on this slide. I am going to put people's vote into the deck, but you're not going to see populate at the moment because we'd have to take it down and refresh and put it back up. We would need 8 affirmative votes for it to pass. And I guess I'll just say, I hope I'm not speaking on Juliet's behalf, that I do think it's a significant milestone for GTAC. So if folks want, no pressure, but if there's anything you want to say about how we got here or the work or anything else, when you cast your vote, I welcome that. And if not, that's okay too. So with that, we are going to do tech stuff. I'm going to mute myself. Jose will unmute and I will call on Jose.
I vote yes, and I will say that I'm really glad that we've moved in this direction. I appreciate all the work you guys did these past few months with the current council, but I'm still with the mindset that working with the current council is like running into a wall over and over. So I love the direction we've gone as a committee and crafting our recommendations for the future and looking forward and seeing how we can work to make Portland better without harping on what's already happened. And I appreciate everyone's work that's gone into this. So thank you.
Thank you, Jose. Juanita.
I vote yes, and I want to thank the members of the committee for an incredible experience about discussing some of these issues and the professionalism and camaraderie and it was just a very wonderful experience working with the team. We were not all of the time in agreement, but we were very focused on, we have exactly the same understanding of where we wanted to get. And so I want to thank everybody who supported the work and participated with the committees. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Juanita. Juliet. Okay, short and sweet. So Leah is absent and I will mark her as that, but I did note that earlier in the chat, she had to leave this meeting early and she can't cast a absentee vote, but she did say that she supports these recommendations and is very appreciative of everyone's work. So thank you for letting me share that. Lori.
Yes, I'd just like to say how honored I am to have been part of the process. When I think back to when we started this, of doing the actual research and myself Googling things, being involved in something like this that I've never been involved in, and understanding how other cities work, that each of us participated in that, the process of engaging city employees, the process by talking to the community, which I thought was really enlightening, and then the tremendous work that a core of this group that I was not really a part of, that put together this document of distilling all of the information down to such a cogent amount of recommendations, I think is really impressive. So I'm really pleased to have been part of the process and to have witnessed it. And I vote yes.
Thank you, Lori. Terry.
I vote yes. I would like to thank everybody on the receiving end of all of my edits and comments on all of the drafts. There were many comments and edits I had. And I remember thinking that, oh my God, how are we going to get through this? And then like right around the middle of the last subcommittee meeting, I realized, oh, I think we have this. I think it's gelling. And like 1 or 2 days of edits after that meeting, and it just kind of crystallized like one of those, when you like have those image things where you have to cross your eyes and you get the 3D image popping out, and it just popped right out on last round and a half or 2. So thanks to those who put up with edits. And I think we're going to find this a very useful document. And I hope it's widely circulated and consumed. So thanks.
Thank you, Terry. Zach.
I will keep my exposition short. I am a yes. I just want to thank the work of the subcommittee and the co-chairs that did a lot of work in trying to draft what we can then react to. And so yeah, I'm a yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Amy.
I vote yes. And yeah, so ditto the thank yous for the hard work, the months and months of hard work on behalf of you, Terry, and everybody on the committee who worked so hard to draft this and kind of contributed whatever individual things that we had to contribute. Way to go.
Juliet, I see your, thank you, Amy.
I do actually have a comment.
Okay.
I was just going to say, in addition to it's remarkable to look at a document like this and see my ideas brought forth, because I have served on a number of advisory committees like this, and I was not really listened to. So that's very gratifying.
Excellent. Yeah, and I would say if folks have additional thoughts, even if you've gone, you can keep sharing. So we are on Bill. Take it.
Bill votes yes, and I echo appreciation for subcommittee to do the research, draft a document, and put together group. The group effort takes
hours, days, over 7 months. Excellent.
Thank you, Bill. Brian is absent, and that's all. We will record his vote. Destiny, go ahead.
Thank you. It's a yes. I want to thank everybody on the committee and the subcommittee. We were all strangers at one point, coming here at a transformational moment in the city's history. And I just want to thank you for building that trust and collaboration and idea sharing and challenging with that joint passion of listening to Portlanders, to their vote, to their feedback, to their input, to their creativity, to their needs. And so I'm really excited for this document. And I also want to thank Julia and the transition team for actually supporting our committee and taking all of our passion and guiding us to a place where it's productive and informative. And while this new transition is time limited in the moment, it will take years, and none of these recommendations have time constraints. It just takes ongoing advocacy on it. And so I just also want to call that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Destiny. Fred is absent. Jane, go ahead.
Jane is a yes. This document is so well researched, and that is hard work. And ultimately, it's eminently practical, sensible, insightful, and impressive. So it's sort of like I had nothing to do with this. It's just an honor to be associated with it. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jane. You definitely had something to do with it. And Joe is absent. So that is 10 yeses and 4 absence, and it passes. Thank you all so much. I think I'm turning it to Amy.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Miles.
Sorry, go ahead, Juanita.
Yeah, just I don't want to move on without thanking Julia, especially because without Julia, we haven't been able to get here. I want to thank her for her patience, for her willingness to help, especially I will speak personally for myself because I was always running late and I was always having problems with the computer, and she was there to support me and to help me. So thank you so much, Julie.
Yeah. So now we'll move how we discuss how we educate and advocate for our recommendations. Our goal is to leave this discussion with agreements on priority activities that we think will be most effective within our capacity to advance our recommendations with future city leaders. Next slide, please. So as a reminder, we surveyed our members ourselves about this work several months ago. Members, we prioritize the following audiences. Priority 1 is people elected but not yet serving. That's the middle box on the side. Please note how short of a time period that is. Very, very short. Priority 2 is the new council and mayor. That's the right box on the slide. That work is from January 1 on. So the councilors and mayor-elect is November to January. January on is the mayor. And then priority 3 is candidates for elected office. That's the left box on the slide. Work from now to the election, which is about 60 days, less than 60 days. We also asked members to identify specific strategies to build support among these priority populations. Those strategies are on the screen. So first, we want to ask if folks have any new strategies to propose that are not on screen. And if you do, please raise your Zoom hand and we will take the strategies. Please identify which audience your strategy is for, and staff will add it to the slide. Sorry, I gotta switch over from the notes to see hands. We've got Bill.
Appropriate for me to talk now?
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to be sure. I would recommend that in the priorities 1 and 2 anyway, we add the city auditor. It just strikes me that, or it seems to me that this document could become a good reference document for audits.
I've got Destiny and then Jose.
I don't know how common this is, but one of the things I'm wondering is as we email candidates and then electeds is if we would CC people and organizations who have endorsed them as part of that email, because I mean, these are people who publicly endorsed said candidate or elected. They clearly have a connection, and also this is very much engaged and includes those who endorse them. So just an idea. I don't know if that's common, but throwing it out there.
Thanks. We've got Jose, Juliet, Terry, and then
I don't know if this is a strategy or a new tactic, but I'm just glad the candidates is priority 3 because just full disclosure, I'm field director for a candidate. They're currently so busy that getting meetings for all of them is going to be very hard. The longer we wait to have those meetings, the harder it will get. They're already canvassing every single weekend, a lot of them during the week as well, and they have a million events they're invited to. So if we do want to do anything with priority 3, we should figure that out very quickly, because it's going to be near impossible once we get closer to election time. And we also might want to try to figure out what connections we have to people within their campaigns, because that might be easier than an email.
thanks. Juliet and Terry, and then I have a comment.
So my comment is kind of related to Jose's, and Bill has also been one person suggesting that we work with candidates or host some forums of various sorts or information sessions. What I'm seeing is that these things are going on all over the place. Different entities are holding them in different ways. And so I don't quite have a sense of how to help with that. I'm not sure that we want to reinvent the wheel. We have a lot going on already, but I like is this better, Destiny? I like the idea of supporting the candidates, but like Jose says, they're already really busy. So I don't have a suggestion. I'm just thinking about how we could maybe infuse some of our information into some of these candidate forums, but I don't think that we really have the bandwidth to do our own thing and that it would have that much traction. So I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. Thank you.
Yeah, something that Destiny said just triggered something in sort of community engagement 101, in that we are reporting our stuff out. We should make sure that people who had significant input to us receive a copy in the first thing that goes out. And I'm thinking that what happens is that overlaps with the groups that have supporting candidates and that sort of stuff. Those folks are out there. They were also input to our work. But I think we all might have a list of those folks to distribute.
Yeah, I had a very similar thought that our first piece of outreach should be, I don't know that it fits in one of these buckets, but should be to the people we presented to. That seems like we have all those emails and the engagement stuff. So just sending them that. And then as part of that, asking people, is there somewhere we could have a table? I think our kind of question as a group could be, could we have a table at any given event? And we don't need to necessarily have our own events, but we could definitely be in the business of just setting up a table and sharing about our report and just publicizing it. And then also kind of taking the same ethos with council meetings as we've done to the last few months of kind of taking on, like, is there a way we can go to council? Is there a way we can just make ourselves present? And I think that that doesn't exactly fit in one of the buckets, but is just part of this, like, how do we just like puff up, become big? Juanita, go ahead.
Thank you, Amy. I was thinking that is when we have this report ready, I was wondering if there's a possibility to organize like a town halls, maybe a couple of them, and invite the candidates to come. And through that way, we, I don't know if everybody will show, but I will assume that they will be interested in learning what are some of the things that we have been working on, because if they get elected, they're going to be, they're going to have to look into this. And so that we can make a presentation about our recommendations. It doesn't have to be a long meeting, but just presenting the document, talking about the process and hitting the main points, and then letting them to ask us questions and clarifications. I don't know, that would be a way also to do it, because it will be more focused and more able to really spend time with them and talk to them about the work that we've been doing. Just an idea.
Yeah, I maybe it's because in my current job, I'm having to schedule events. My stomach twists a little bit thinking about trying to host a town hall, and then there's very real problems of getting actual candidates to show up and meet with us when, in large part, they aren't meeting with potentially people that would be voting for them. So maybe a friendly suggestion or a revision to what you're suggesting, Juanita, which is let's do our due diligence in identifying where there are existing forums. I was at Laurelhurst's Neighborhood Association for a presentation last night, learned that they're going to do a forum next month. Let's send them our recommendations and some suggested topics in which they could use as questions to the candidates. We know our district coalition offices are helping facilitate either financially or logistically for neighborhood associations. I'm certain that there are community organizations that are trying to do similar things. So I think in tandem with reaching out to the folks who helped put this together, we can kind of think about the organizations that are hosting forums within our communities to encourage them to think of ways to utilize our recommendations as talking points to see, get it on candidates' radars, get it on citizens' radars, that kind of thing.
Thank you. I actually want to expand on what Zach just said, because I think it's an excellent idea, but I think we can take it a little further. I think we could make a short 10-minute presentation and offer ourselves to show up at these forums and make presentations on what we're recommending. And not everyone will want us there, but some might. And if we are already and we're doing this kind of outreach already, we just present our recommendations, and hopefully I had a few candidates mention that early on they saw my presentation, like me personally present like 3 or 4 times, because we were doing so many of these. So I think if they hear it 3 or 4 times, they might remember it.
Seems like probably something we want to support the staff in doing, and it's a chunk of work that needs to happen. So if that's okay, if people would be willing to identify, if you're willing to volunteer to help do that due diligence. Please let us know. Like maybe in the chat. Go ahead.
Sorry, folks. So it might take us a moment. Can you refresh? We're gonna refresh this screen because I've been adding. I mean, please do what Amy's saying in the chat. That would be super helpful. I didn't delete anything from the slide because I want to confirm that, even though I think I'm hearing some consensus maybe around a deletion. But I want to make sure, to Jose's point, we are in a pretty time limited space right now. And so I just want to make sure that I'm understanding the consensus of the group. If you can bring it back up whenever you're ready. Unless you want to kind of repeat what you think. Once we bring it back up, just like.
Yeah, well, I can share the consensus that I think I just summarized, which is just that there's a lot of research about where we need to show up as a committee. And so a group of people, whoever has capacity, we should do that work in the near term. Yeah.
Glad the screen is touch sensitive. It works. As we're talking about this, I support trying to reach out to the candidates. Then it comes to mind, how do we prioritize or compare priority and event, for making presentations about the upcoming elections and ranked choice voting? That is contrasted with our committee recommendations. And ideally, we do both, but thinking somewhat out loud, that I'm envisioning we have a couple neighborhood association meetings coming up. And the 15 minutes allowed, planning on giving a presentation for upcoming elections. Probably not enough time for these recommendations. So I think maybe what I'm saying is we're looking for additional opportunities. Group is already with ranked choice. Not giving an answer there. I'm struggling with that.
So, Jane, go ahead. And we have a few more minutes until we have to move on from this.
Thank you so much. I'm a great believer in giving information to people when they're ready for it. So I think that if we tried our hardest and worked really hard, it would be a bit like peeing in the wind trying to get hold of candidates right now. I think candidates are really focused on trying to win the election. And I don't want to be that frustrated. So my personal preference in this is to do box 3, the one after November, when all of a sudden people are elected and they're thinking about my next steps. And this is all from kind of like research about how you educate people. If you give them information beforehand, they shut it down. And if they shut it down, they actually turn it off. So you can't even come back to them afterwards. So my sense is to wait.
Just to clarify, Jane, do you mean wait regarding community, like large scale community outreach about our recommendations until after the election? Is that your recommendation?
No, I'm talking really about elected officials. I think that this work is really important for electorate. They would be the top of my pyramid as far as people that we have to spend energy getting into our hands. I think all of the other stuff of emailing every community member who gave input into it, and sending it to community groups saying, hey, this is what we've got. We're really, really excited. When you get your district councillors, please make sure that you hit them over the head with this document. We're going to do the same thing. But I don't think the head hitting begins until after November the 5th.
Thanks so much, Jane. Is any other comments? We have about 2 more minutes for comments. Zach, go ahead.
I guess with the time, I'm just gonna +1 Jane's recommendation. I think the kind of ways that we're suggesting to interact with candidates pre-election is not really gonna reach them in many ways. And so I think the kind of ingratiating yourselves with people who are interacting with them and uplifting is my kind of like the suggestion that I was trying to make through those who are hosting forums and the like. And I want to just share something that I put in chat, which is I think onus on ourselves is to also connect with those who we've already talked to. Beyond, we might have had these separate presentations that are, you know, about policy making, like, you know, Jose and I going to ERCO, like, of course we should share them with ERCO, but like all of those other presentations that we've done all the way back to the beginning of this year and beyond. And so I think there's good opportunity there to uplift.
Thanks. Jose, I think you get the closing comment for tonight.
Just really quick, I think we should have just something packaged to even mention our recommendations, just in case. A lot of these groups that are doing forums, we've already presented. I know because 2 or 3 are coming up are groups we presented at multiple times. So there is an opportunity to give them more, right? These are people who are informed, so the more informed, the better. So we should have as much information as we can. But of course, we should always prioritize RCV, but there's many groups that have already heard our spiel over and over.
Yeah, to build on that, maybe we call it like Team Give 'em More or something. Like, how can we package this up? And maybe that's what the volunteers are, this group of people who steps up to do this chunk of work. We can kind of package things together in a way that's like as user accessible as possible to the people we've already built relationships with. So that seems clear. If you want to help with that work, write it in the chat. And then I'll hand it over to Julia.
Thanks, Amy.
Next.
Next slide, please. The recording of this meeting, will be posted on the committee's website and is available after the meeting ends on the Office of Management and Finance YouTube channel. We have upcoming voter education community town halls in September and October that include in-person and virtual sessions. The GTAC members have volunteered, but all are encouraged to attend a town hall and invite others. Our next full GTAC meeting is October 8th. Topics will likely include city administrator recruitment, onboarding, and a report on our engagement to date and strategies moving forward. The next meeting of the Voter and Candidate Education and Outreach Subcommittee is October 31st, and you will have a doodle poll to schedule our final GTAC meetings next year. Please complete that doodle so we can finalize our schedule. Next slide, please. Thank you for all of your participation and your support of Amy and me when we were co-chairing, and onward and upward with Bill and Destiny.
Gavels.
Yeah, we're gaveling out. We're gaveling out.
Thank you, Julia and Amy.